I want to address Bernie Sanders once again, like I said, because let me just say this. When it comes to Bernie Sanders, ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop making excuses. He made his bed, and now he has to sleep in it. We don't know the insides, what's going on. There are a lot of people that think that he was threatened back in the day, and he's still been becoming and placating to more and more of an established mentality. I'm going to be honest with you. We wouldn't be here, me and Fiorella and Johnny, if it wasn't for Bernie Sanders. No hell, no way. But once again, he is really slipping into some dangerous territory right now. And really, to tell you the truth, I don't know how I feel right now. I'm really that upset with him. And there are 4 main reasons. I'm going to tell you why. And it's been going on for several weeks. Last time when it was the Nevada primaries a couple weeks ago, we talked about the way the whole campaign had made a decision to continue with this Russiagating. And Bernie Sanders, shortly after being accused by the Washington Post as one of the candidates that Putin wants to win, the neo-McCarthyism is just disgusting, by the way.
I think what you saw the Sanders say yesterday, he was very forthright. How great would it be to have a president who would look directly in the camera and go, Mr. Putin, you ain't wanted here. We don't want you to have no part of these elections. And when he's president, he'll make sure there's no Russian interference. Strong, bold, out front going, no, you're not welcome in these elections.
So let's ask the man that worships Mr. Putin every chance he gets, why would he do something like that to try to taint what is happening? And by extension, Russia continues to try to taint our elections.
The intelligence community is telling us they are interfering in this campaign right now in 2020. And when I say to Mr. Putin, if elected president, trust me, you are not going to be interfering in American elections. And again, as president of the United States, Mr. Putin, you will not interfere in our elections.
And if this came out a month ago,
Russia.
Bernie Sanders kind of doubled down on that rhetoric and that narrative and said, Mr. Putin, you will no longer mess in my elections if I'm the president. I mean, he placated towards the establishment. I don't know why he had to do that. And in that last debate, the way he kind of fenced off with China, even talked about, Donald Trump in North Korea. I mean, there are just some bad foreign policy moves by Bernie Sanders, and it really hurts his chance with a lot of the anti-regime change war independents out there that would normally vote for him. Maybe the libertarians that thought to look at him said he was a better option than Donald Trump. Not with this rhetoric. It's very, very bad. That was number 4. I'm going backwards. Number 3, his refusal to call out the election integrity. I've said this before. My friend Dave from Radical Independent talks about, stop saying it's rigged. People are conditioned. Yeah, people are conditioned. But there's rigging involved as well. It's a double-edged sword. They use the media, they suppress our civil liberties, they keep our voices down, and they put out this notion that only Biden can beat Donald Trump. Only Biden can beat Donald Trump. If only, Johnny, we had an experiment where we ran a centrist establishment neoliberal Democrat against Donald Trump to see if it would work. It didn't work last time. It's not going to work this time. But that's part of the double-edged sword, and people buy into it. So they go and they mark the ballot for Biden. But also the rigging that's involved, too. Bernie Sanders needs to come up with an election integrity bill. We know Tulsi Gabbard has that best bill out there when it comes to election integrity. I even kind of asked her about it last time.
And we must continue to press leaders in Washington to pass my legislation, the Securing America's Elections Act, so that very simply there will be no shadow of a doubt that the votes that we cast cannot be manipulated without there being a paper trail so that we can audit and make sure that those counts are accurate and that the leaders of our country are actually chosen by the people.
She's great when it comes to election integrity. She wants to have open primaries, not only because it's more transparent that way, but the fact is that now the Democrat has to talk to everybody instead of being so tribal and demonizing. Okay, so she wants to eliminate superdelegates. She wants to make everything open and transparent and accessible as possible. She has the Securing Elections Integrity Act. Okay, she has the bill. Bernie Sanders, not only has he not come up with a good bill, he's not calling out the DNC for what they're doing. And when they're suppressing the vote, when they're disenfranchising the vote, they mainly do it to people of color. We saw it here, what they were doing to the Latino community out here, because they knew, the elites, that Bernie Sanders has the Latinos in the bag. He's got their vote. So they suppressed their vote. They also suppressed the late vote by creating these long, crazy lines from a chaotic system they knew would break down, that they knew they didn't have everybody trained to handle. So now the Bernie brass that vote late, their vote is suppressed because they're going by and they're seeing a line 3 hours. They can't wait on it. Moms who got to babysit their children or, you know what I'm saying, have pets to feed, they got to go home. They can't wait 3-4 hours. They did that on purpose. And Bernie Sanders hasn't called it out. He hasn't called it out in Tejas. He hasn't called it out in South Carolina. He didn't call it out in Massachusetts. He didn't call it out in Minnesota. And he sure as hell didn't call it out in L.A. And it's no joke, ladies and gentlemen. There is serious rigging going on. You don't have to be a genius to see it. All you have to do is pay attention. Number two, Bernie keeps going around saying Joe Biden's my friend. I will vote for Joe Biden if he's the nominee. No, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say that. Quit placating. Listen, Bernie Sanders, you have a better chance of getting pregnant than me voting for Joe Biden. Ever. I will never vote for Joe Biden. And it's a big turnoff when you tell people that. Number one reason, Bernie Sanders has been part of this whole erase Tulsi movement, and it's really disheartening. The other ones you can say, hey, man, these are bad political calculations. You're just wrong about them. But the way he said, there are 18 candidates left in the race, started in the race, and now it's down to 2. It was disheartening. Your friend, Tulsi Gabbard, at least you say she's a friend, the woman who is stuck up for you time and time again, the woman who walked away from the DNC for you, Bernard Sanders, just like you did for Mr. O'Malley. There should be 3 people in the debate. You can't do the same for Tulsi Gabbard. Terrible. How are you going to go out there and say you're the party, we're going to be the party that ends racism. We're going to be the party that ends sexism. And yet, a woman of color, a sitting congresswoman, you're going to ignore her? A woman of color? I'm sorry, Bernie Sanders. These are terrible moves. You are going in the wrong direction. You have the wrong people advising you in your campaign. Fayez Shakur, get rid of him. Matt Duss, get rid of him. Anybody who came for the Center of American Progress, Bernard Sanders, is probably not the person that you want involved in your campaign. They're everything the Nearatandons and the Podestas, Center for American Progress, they're everything we stand against, true progressives. Sorry, I've got a little. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got to say on that subject. I really want Bernie Sanders to go in the right direction. I really do. But right now, what he is doing, it is somewhat of a political suicide in some ways. And, you know, kudos to those people who stood up and say what he's doing to Tulsi is wrong and that there should be 3 people on that debate stage. Kudos to you. But for the people who have been silent, and you know who you are, it just shows that you weaponized identity when it was convenient for you, and you just ignored it when it was blatant and pure in your face. Okay? The fracturing of this party is beyond. And let me tell you something. Everybody always said, and I thought that too, I thought the biggest hurdle for Bernard Sanders would be getting through the Democratic Party. No. He's made himself look so hypocritical and made so many wrong moves where Donald Trump is the only one saying, you know, I think it's wrong what they're doing to Bernie Sanders. They don't want him to be his nomination and they're cheating him. Why does Donald Trump have to say those things? Now I think your biggest hurdle is even if you get past this Democratic Party, and I don't think you will, because it's obvious to me, and I know it's obvious to Johnny Sue over there, that the Democratic Party rather lose to Donald Trump than allow Bernie Sanders a chance to win that nomination and win the presidency, because their cash flow is gone. The Democrat establishment's status quo is over if Bernie Sanders becomes president. But if Donald Trump wins, they keep their job. And they get that gravy train coming. We say in Brooklyn, they get that scuttle coming in.